Welcome into Band of Bettors, a betting show for sports fans looking to be more data-driven, and the data certainly held out in Week 7. Brad Kronthal here with Spencer Kronthal. We are of Alloy Sports, and we are excited to be back with another great episode to recap Week 7 and look ahead to Week 8. Spencer, how was your weekend?
Another great weekend of football. We had some awesome games, awesome upsets. I'm looking at Carolina over Tampa. We had some offensive explosions. We had some defensive stalemates. I'm looking at the Jets, Denver, where another great week of football ahead. I think we saw a little bit of it all this past weekend.
I think you say it's always a great week of football, which generally it usually is. I mean, I will say a couple weeks ago it was pretty bad just to see the refs completely botch those roughing the passer calls, but pretty much is a great week of football. I'm expecting a better lead-in next week because football is the best. Let's start with our opening act. All right, let's move on. Let's start with our opening act. Your favorite moment of Week 7.
Yeah, for me, I'm looking back at the Bengals. I think I alluded to last week that the Bengals were starting to catch fire. You look at Joe Burrow coming out. I think he had over 300 in the first half, ended with about 480 passing yards. There's only a couple of guys in the league who've even touched close to that number. Jamar Chase back on track. Nice to see a Tyler Boyd resurgence in the last couple of weeks as well. I haven't seen that in a couple of years. But the Bengals are on fire. They finally broke that Falcons ATS streak going on this year. And right now I think the AFC North's got the Bengals' name all over it just from the way they've been playing recently.
Yeah, I think Cincinnati is just, Super Bowl runner-ups, been waiting for them to click. They've had offensive line trouble, but they never had an issue once Joe Burrow and his receivers are healthy, and he certainly did a great job spreading the ball around last week. They are looking dynamic. My opening act favorite moment of Week 7 has to go to Las Vegas, and I'm talking about Josh Jacobs. He has been phenomenal lately. 6 touchdowns in his last 3 games, 3 on Sunday. He is really, really picking up the slack for the Raiders. And you look at a guy where in the offseason, Vegas does not pick up his 5th-year option as a first-round pick. This guy's just playing his way into a massive contract, and the Raiders have made another front office gaffe is what it looks like. So on Sunday, 20 rushes, 143 yards, 3 touchdowns, as I alluded to. He is carrying that Las Vegas offense, and they're looking to pick up the pace in the AFC West, but got to feel good for Josh Jacobs, really running his rear end off and playing some great ball for the Raiders.
Oh, yeah. 3 straight games, over 140 yards each time. Jacobs is hitting his stride as the Raiders are starting to make a little bit more of their push after kind of that sluggish start to the season. Awesome to see.
Absolutely. So this is our section of the show where we go back to last week's picks and see how we did. The week before, Spencer wasn't that kind to you, a little bit of regression there, but Week 7 was very kind to you. So let's go in and take a look at how your picks performed in Week 7, and you can walk us through it.
Absolutely. Look to bounce back after that 0-2 week last year. Want to get a little bit more games on the plate just to buffer the percentages a little bit further. Start with Cleveland, Baltimore. Looking at that game, that was an easy one for me to pick. The Baltimore offense has been sluggish. Defense has been bad. Still favored by 6.5, and Baltimore hasn't looked good at home either. Cleveland was an easy pick on that one. I rode with Atlanta. Should have realized the Cincinnati train is just starting to hit its stride and take on there. Looking at the Giants, I think one thing that was a common trend on a lot of these was, looking at the Giants in Cleveland was that teams playing on the road could have actually been hotter team at the moment, a team with less issues, where the Giants over Jacksonville were looking great. Giants were still +3. That was one I was excited to jump on. And then Seattle +6. Who's playing better than Geno Smith this year so far, quarterback? I think he's still leading the league in completion percentage. Kenneth Walker's on fire. And then Pittsburgh and Chicago. These were a couple of toss-ups where I looked at trusted data. I haven't been thrilled with Chicago this year, but they came out in strides to push me from 4-1 to 5-1 in the week. And Pittsburgh did just enough to cover that +7 spread line against Miami this past week. So nice to get back on track with an awesome 5-1 week following the Alloy systems.
Yeah, fantastic week. And I think we've seen some trends really pushing towards those underdogs this season. I think I saw a stat that was about, high 50s or low 60s that just the underdogs are winning. So to come onto Alloy and build some strategies based off that information has been really beneficial and a great week. So kudos for you. So I'm going to share My picks as well didn't do quite as well. And I think I had a little issue logging the picks this week. So here's the picks that I had tracked on BetStamp. So 2 weeks, so a little bit under in the financial profit gain here. New Orleans was one where felt pretty good about it. A lot of my strategies like New Orleans, obviously knowing it was Andy Dalton starting, take it for what you will. But when New Orleans had a chance to go up by two scores early and Dalton throws a pick in the back of the end zone, a drive or two later hits his receiver right in the hands, it pops up, and Arizona returns it for a touchdown. I knew it was probably time to turn off the TV last Thursday. Indianapolis, don't love Indy. The data liked Indy. They played well recently, so not too upset about that loss. The Jets, though, coming through. They have been really, really good. Look at the defense holding Denver to 9 points, obviously facing the backup quarterback, but the Jets seemed like a very confident pick for me last week, and they did just that in covering the spread and winning outright. And then Kansas City, really expected them to come back, so I like them on the money line against San Francisco. They did just that. Looking at a few more picks, though, that I did like in the broadcast last week that did not make it to BetSnap. Cleveland plus 6.5, I really liked as well. Alluded to Nick Chubb running the ball. Bad Baltimore defense in the second half. Cleveland covers. They only lost by 3. And then, obviously, I like the Giants as well. A lot of strategies this season that we've built have like the Giants, and they just continue to impress, especially as underdogs, not only covering the spread, but winning games outright. So those were our picks last week. Again, it's really just nice to come in and know you have that data, right? So like the previous week in week 6, some of our games weren't hitting as we liked, a little bit of regression theory there. What we like to see is, hey, we know these strategies have worked over the past couple years. You just got to stay confident and bet consistently, right?
Exactly. I think that's the key. When you're looking at data, what's a 1 week sample size? Even a couple weeks is pretty small where, you want to look at a strategy that's done well over a couple of years. Got a nice backlog of data. And if it doesn't work in 1 week, for example, go 0-2, maybe you have a 5-1 week waiting for you the next week. So got to stick with the trends. Look to play the long game a little bit more to find that true profitability.
And how do you feel when you have a tough week? If you're regular betting, it's tough. You start to rethink things. How did you feel, I guess, from a personal standpoint last week and then making your bets this week?
Yeah, I think, for me, coming 0-2 wasn't great, but again, it's only 2 games. If I combine both weeks, I'm still 5-3, where I think if I would have went, 1-5 or 1-6, probably would have hit a little bit harder than just only 2 games, where this week I knew I wanted to find a strategy where there was a lot more sample size, even within the week. So I could bet on 6 games and, if I go 4-2 or 5-1, I'm gonna be really happy. Even 3-3, I mean, it's not great. You lose the cut off the top, but you can see the trend starting to come. So I think the biggest thing is just patience as you're working with a strategy.
Yeah, I think my biggest issue is just the bet stamp tracking. I'm doing pretty well in real life, but last week would have been my picks went 4-2, but only got a few of them on bet stamp. And then the week before, or 2 weeks ago, I did really well. I didn't get the best line on bet stamp with the Bears, but I did in real life. So that would have been a 6-2 week for me. But instead it was a 5-2-1. So real life's been pretty good. It's just being able to track it for the sake of this show has not made me look as well as I've been doing. But I mean, I'll take real life over fake life any day. So I think one division that we've been talking about and stands out, which is surprising because this division, you're never actually talking about the good teams. You're waiting to see towards the end of the year which team can actually win the division by being the best of the worst, if you will. NFC East, BetMGM has the odds out. Eagles at the top, obviously, still undefeated, but 3 teams with 2 losses or less. This division's a toss-up. I saw these odds come out for the futures bets and thinking to myself, there is a lot of value if you like the Cowboys or the Giants. I think the Commanders you could probably write off, but Cowboys and Giants, Eagles, all very close for that number 1 seed in the NFC East, and the Eagles have a lot of points to lay if you like them at this point in time. What are you thinking when you see these futures odds?
I see plus 15,000. I've got Washington.
No, you don't.
Not at all. Not at all. They're plus 15,000 for a reason. We stay away from the Commanders. They're one of those teams. It's them, the Bears. We try not to touch them when we can. But when I'm looking at this, I see the Giants. I think plus 700 for a team that's half a game behind because they've had a bye. I mean, you can look at it and see the Eagles and say, they're probably the most talented team in the division. With Jalen Hurts playing like an MVP, but this is also new experience for Jalen Hurts to play this well. I look at the Giants and I see head coach who's absolutely on fire in Dable, an offensive scheme that seems to be hitting its stride, not only with Barkley, who looks like maybe the best running back in football right now, but Daniel Jones, who's adopted a running mindset as well. And all of these teams are unproven. I mean, the most proven is probably Dallas with Dak, but he's coming off that injury, so you don't know what you're getting. Why not take the Giants at plus 700? They're on a trend. They've got a great coach. And who's to say the Eagles aren't due for some regression?
That would be pretty impactful if we were to come on here and say, we have a strategy that's going to hit at 85% clip, and it likes the Commanders to easily win the NFC East, currently sitting at 3-4. No,
might need some roster reconstruction for that one, and some organizational reconstruction for that matter.
Yeah, that would take up maybe a month's worth of shows just to get into Washington. But hey, I do like Heineke. He gives him a chance to win. He's an exciting quarterback to watch. But back to the point here, I see a lot of value in one particular team. I love playing the futures markets. They're so much fun, and especially in football, week to week can vary so much. If the Eagles and the Giants and the Cowboys, if one of those teams win and the other two lose, the odds will shift drastically. We're almost halfway through the season, and you're seeing a lot of value if you like a team with those plus numbers that are quite nice. Like you like the Giants, plus 700, might be a good time to get in. I wouldn't think it would be for New York because they're just on fire. I don't see them continuing to win. I see them either picking up a loss or two and falling down a bit. Maybe that's when you get in if they hit that plus 1,000 number. I mean, look where they are right now at 6-1. The team I like is the team that's consistent. They haven't really broken through yet, but they have the roster, they have the coaching. It's just time for them to actually put pen to paper and get it done. I like Dallas right now. They're 5-2. They had a lot of those wins with Cooper Rush. Dak just came back. Defense has been extremely solid. As long as they stay healthy, I think Dallas should be the front runner for this division by week 18. Philly's been incredible. Can they keep it up? That's the question. There's a lot of unknowns with Philly. No, they're not going 17-0. It's just not going to happen. They're going to fall off a bit. This is where I see some value in the Cowboys. If 2 or 3 weeks from now, Philly picks up a loss or two and Dallas continues to trend in the right direction, then you're closer to even odds. At plus 450 entering week 8, I see that as prime value to throw some money on Dallas. I still see them as the front runner in this division by the end of the season. The Giants, happy-go-lucky season's been great. I agree with you. I love Brian Daboll and what he's brought to that organization. But if you look pound for pound, battle-tested, who's got a team that can make a run, I do think Philly can. I think two of these teams can make the playoffs easily, maybe even 3. But I like, with the odds where they are, plus 450, I like Dallas. At this point in time, that's where I'd like to throw some money on Dallas.
Well, I think we'll see what happens to the division. This seems to be the one where whatever you think is going to happen, the opposite happens. So we'll be looking out for Washington over the next few weeks.
Yeah, for all we know, this division will still be under 500 entering the final week of the season because that's what it usually does. So we're not used to having 3 elite teams in the NFC, so it's been fun to watch. So Spencer, this brings us to our favorite portion of the segment. It's our forecast for week 8 segment. This is where we like to predict games that our strategies have pushed us toward using the Alloy app. So I'll let you lead off here. What are the games that you're looking forward to betting in week 8?
So I'm looking to stay consistent with the strategy that did so well last week. I call it my drive extender strategy. I'm looking at teams that convert on 3rd down and don't turn the ball over. Essentially, they're going to keep those drives moving as the game goes on. The teams that are coming up for me this week, I'm also looking at road teams, are Arizona to cover over Minnesota. So I got Cardinals at plus 3.5. The Commanders over Indy. I know we knocked the Commanders, but came through this past week over Green Bay. maybe they're starting to show a little bit of credibility. Also, Indy's in a downward spiral. They don't know what's going on there with the benching of Matt Ryan. Really, things haven't been the same, you could say, since Andrew Luck retired. I got the Giants over Seattle. These are probably a matchup of two of my favorite teams so far this season. The Daniel Jones, Barkley-led offense versus Geno Smith, but the Giants are at +3 on the road. I like the odds there. And then finally, I'm looking for a little bit of regression back to the mean in terms of Aaron Rodgers getting back on his game, laying about 10 to 11 points, depending on where you can get the odds at Buffalo. I don't think Green Bay is winning this game, but it's pretty tough to see Aaron Rodgers as a 10-point dog, especially, looking at the data as well. I think Rodgers is going to bounce back, and I think they'll at least keep it close up in Buffalo. So those are my 4 picks this week.
Yeah, I mean, Pittsburgh's bounced back in a big way this season as far as keeping games close. So good picks. I got 4 games I'm looking at this week. So I combine my road grader strategy that's free to everyone to see. That's been really successful this year for the heavy underdogs, as well as the ground and pound strategy. Both of these strategies relying more on the ground game. So the first game I'm looking at is Cardinals and Vikings. I like the Cardinals +3.5. Coming off a win at home, the Vikings have been winning as well. I just think the Vikings they've had some luck on their side recently. I think the Cardinals are able to win this game, but at the very least, keep it close and cover the spread. It's nice to have that hook there at 3.5. I think this could be within a field goal or a Cardinals win. The next one is a game that I know I'm going to screw myself on because whenever I bet them, they lose, and whenever I don't bet them, they cover. I'm going to take Chicago. I know I just talked up the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys are going to win this game at home, but I do think because the Bears' philosophy is to run the football, I think Dallas just wants to win this game, and who cares how they do it. Dak's still working himself into shape. Bears defense has been okay, not great, but okay. I think that Dallas will handle this game. Could be like a 2-touchdown game in with 4 or 5 minutes left. Chicago gets a backdoor cover. I'm going with the data in this one. Don't love it, personally, but I'll go Bears +9.5. Some books had it at 10 or over, so I'll go Bears +9.5. Third game, Cleveland Bengals. I expect Cleveland to bounce back here. At home, division rival. I think it's on Monday Night Football this week. They're going to run the ball. Nick Chubb, I think he'll pick up the pace here. Cleveland's defense, they still got those pass rushers. Bengals still struggle on the offensive line. I expect Cleveland to bounce back, cover the spread +3. And then the last game, I'm totally with you on the Packers. At some point, they got to turn it around. They are not, one of the worst teams in the NFL. Granted, they don't have the best receiving core. They haven't for a while, but I expect them to keep this game close against Buffalo, at least closer than 10.5. And if they don't, maybe things change in Green Bay. Something has to give. They've just been playing some god-awful football. And I agree with you, though. I don't think they're as bad as they should be playing right now. So Cardinals, Bears, Browns, and Packers, all ATS. Those are my plays this week.
Awesome. Let's definitely see a little bit of overlap. I think we're both very aligned on that Packers game. I'm
underdogs.
I think that's my game to watch this week is Packers Bills.
It's underdogs, and it's not just our data. You just go straight up and look at underdogs overall this season in the NFL. They're winning. Sorry, they're covering, which is winning for you as a bettor. So combining just that generic underdog category with the stats that go with it, and then you're building even stronger strategies like we've done, there's no reason not to follow that. They've been really successful. So that's what we're looking to do. Any closing thoughts as we close out the show and get pumped for Thursday Night Football in a couple of days with the Ravens and the Bucks? We don't have a play, but we do have rooting interest.
Absolutely. I think that'll be interesting. I think, as we get to the midpoint of the season, I think I'm excited to see what's going on. We talked about, potential coaches on the hot seat a couple of weeks ago. Are there going to be those serious shakeups? How long is Green Bay going to run down this? What is going on in Denver? Indianapolis with their coaching issues? Is Brady done? I think there's a lot of questions that have really popped up as we approach the midpoint of the season, or the semi-midpoint, now that we have 17 games. And what's going to happen? It's going to be a hell of a run down the stretch. I think there's going to be a lot of shakeups. The NFC East is the top division. I mean, what is going on here? And I'm excited to find out.
I will give you a ton of credit. If Hackett's the next quarterback or the next head coach fired, You called that a while ago after Rule, thinking Rule would be first and then Hackett. I didn't see it happening just because he's a first-year coach. You don't really see that happening mid-season, so I give
Well,
you credit
you
that he
gotta
is the next
follow the
coach
drive
fired.
extender strategy.
There's
It
some
even covers
rumblings,
head
though. If
coach.
Denver struggles this week, Hackett may be on the really hot seat. So looking forward to watching that. And among the other storylines, I mean, who the heck would have thought Carolina would have swamped the Buccaneers last week? So should be a great week of football. Always is. Thanks so much for tuning in to Band of Bettors. You can follow us on Twitter at Band of Bettors. And then Alloy Sports is where we work and get all our data from. Building it ourselves. You can too, to become your own expert. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Band of Bettors. Good luck with all your bets this week.